Hello, ladies. It is Tiffany of Clarity, Confidence, Courage, Women's Empowerment. I'm a women's life coach that focuses on helping divorced, heart-centered women rebuild, regain, and recreate the lives so they can live a confident, happy, healthy life that they love. In this video, I am interviewing Nicole Middendorf. She is a financial wealth advisor. She's an entrepreneur. She is a mother. She has written 5 books. And yes, ladies, she has gone through a very difficult divorce. So I listened to you all. I took a poll and you said the biggest thing that you want to listen to on my channel is about finances. That's something that's coming up a lot. And so I reached out to Nicole. She is an amazing expert. She runs her own business. I'm going to have all her links and descriptions below. This is part 1 because the interview ran fairly long. So this is part 1 of the interview. I'm going to release part 2 in the next couple days. But for right now, get your pen and paper and get ready to take notes because this is going to help you whether you are thinking about divorce or already have gone through a divorce. Nicole is amazing. I'm so excited to present to you Nicole Middendorf, and make sure to share, like, and subscribe. Hello, everyone. It is Tiffany of Clarity, Confidence, Courage, Women's Empowerment. I am a women's life coach that helps empathic, compassionate, divorced women rebuild, redesign, and recreate lives they absolutely love. And I am super excited because today I have a special guest that I will be interviewing to talk about something that I know is near and dear to a lot of your hearts, which is how to rebuild your life after going through a divorce when it comes to your finances. So today I have with me Nicole Middendorf, and she is going to be talking about how to truly have a prosperous life and build prosperous wealth as a financial advisor, consultant, and to really help you understand how to rebuild your life as a divorced woman when it comes to your finances. Nicole, I'm going to start off by letting you introduce yourself and tell us more about you and how you got into the world of finance.
So I never planned on being a wealth advisor. I wanted to go to law school. I wanted to be like Madeleine Albright. I had the gracious opportunity to study abroad over in Germany and fell in love with the United Nations. And so I wanted to be like Ruth Bader Ginsburg and change the world. Yes. But life usually has a different path than we planned on. And in college, I went to school for international business and marketing, ended up meeting this guy that dreamt of being a stockbroker his whole life. And he started working, back then it was Dean Witter, which became Morgan Stanley Dean Witter. And I graduated, was ready to go to law school. And he's like, no, you're not doing that. You're going to work with me. I'm like, no, I'm not. And it all comes back to, I had a fear with money. And I find many women have that. And particularly if you're going through the divorce process, the divorce, it's scary and it's so hard itself. But then if you're also dealing with finances and then getting back on your feet afterwards, it's so stressful and overwhelming. And so way back when in 6th grade, I was out. So I was always in all the honors classes, they call them now. Back then they called them challenge classes. But I was on the honors classes and my math teacher for the day was gone. So I was with everyone else. And there was only like 20 kids in the class. I went to this small private Catholic school. So I was called up to the chalkboard to do the problem. Like, oh, we're going to have, Nicole, our honors student, show us how to do it. So I go and do the problem. And I sat back down and I looked at it. I'm like, I think I did something wrong. And I went to say something, but I didn't. And the teacher made this huge, big deal out of it. Like, oh my gosh, how could this challenge student, do this math problem incorrectly? It was at that moment that I was like, I can't do math, which means I can't do math, which means I can't do money. And so I grew up with this like fear. And from that moment forward, I was never in honors math classes. I was honors everything else, but not math. And so here I got married. And my husband at the time was like, you're going to be a financial advisor. I'm like, oh my God, like, no, I'm not. Like, I want to go to law school. And so that's how I ended up in this world of finance. And fast forward, I'm a survivor of domestic violence. And so I just thought he was controlling, but no, there was, definitely more to that. And when we were married, as I started as a financial advisor back in 1999, I came home one day and he had taken my car that was paid for and had a Lexus and had the license plate on it was his. And he's like, I signed you up to be a certified divorce financial analyst. You're going to be the first one here in Minnesota because this is how you can make money. And so that's how I became a financial advisor, let alone a certified divorce financial analyst. But I believe like things happen for a reason. We meet people for a reason. We go through bad times for a reason. And sometimes when you're in them, you don't necessarily see it. But when you're out of it, like now it all makes sense. It makes sense, why I'm a wealth advisor, because I will always remember those feelings of intimidation and overwhelming, not just my math class experience, but my experience in my relationship, let alone a relationship with a financial advisor, let alone my significant other for so many years. And so unfortunately, I went through the divorce process myself, but as a certified divorce financial analyst since 1999, I've helped so many people through the divorce process. And I always tell people, one of my favorite phrases that my mentor always told me, and I still to this day, like tell myself almost every day, is give yourself grace.
Yes.
And when you're going through this process and when you're coming out of it, you need to give yourself grace and realize that it takes most people at least 3 years to kind of get on your feet a little bit financially, emotionally, moving, if you're changing places and just getting a new budget and having that sense of confidence and that new, this new life. And that's what can be exciting and fun. And that's really what I love helping people with, is see that bright side. And like, if I can do this and go through this, like you can do this. Anyone can do this.
Oh, wow. You have such a story. And part of the reason that I was excited to talk to you is because you yourself have been through divorce. And there's so many women, especially the women I talk to, that have gone through either physical domestic violence or emotional abuse, or sometimes all the above. But I think something that we don't often associate when we think about domestic violence or abuse is financial abuse. And that some women have also experienced financial abuse where their spouses have either taken money or stolen money or used money or tried to use their children against them in order to get out of paying child support or whatever it may be. So I can imagine there's a myriad of stories that you have heard women talk about when it comes to financial abuse. Nicole, what are some tips for, especially coming from your background and the women that you work with, that you can give to some of our audiences if they're thinking about getting a divorce, if they're thinking about separation and or post-divorce, and what they should be doing now, especially if they've gone through, difficulties with finances?
Yeah. The biggest thing is get some help. Don't feel like you need to do it all on your own, and start asking questions. If you're like, gosh, like, because there's many women that I know would get divorced if they could financially feel like they could do it. And it's scary. And so that's where, like, you've got to understand most Americans don't have a budget. And so if you're thinking, okay, gosh, like I want to get divorced, like this is not healthy for me, or, it's just the relationship isn't working, you've got to then come up with 2 important documents. One is your budget worksheet. And the budget is, maybe you're going to have a budget of how you're living now, but the more important thing is you're going to have a budget of how you're going to live when the divorce is over. What is it going to cost you? Are you going to be renting? Are you going to be moving out? Are you staying in the house? And are you staying in the house, and can you afford it on your own? And most women, I will always, always, always remember this woman. This attorney called me and she's like, Nicole, I need to hire you. I need you to help my client understand she cannot keep this house. And so she sat down in my office and she's like, I'm going to do whatever I need to do to stay in this house. And she's still a client today. We helped her retire. And she listened, she took my advice. And the whole reason the Institute of Certified Divorce Financial Analysts got started is because in Colorado, they did a study and they took women going through the divorce process and coming out of it. And the women for the first 3 years did okay. It was after those 3 years that their net worth actually went down.
Wow.
And the men, the first 3 years really struggled, but after those 3 years, their net worth dramatically went up. And we had this scale. And like, why? Because the men were traditionally taking the retirement accounts, the pension, they had the means and ability to save for retirement. And the women were like, I got to take the house. I got to keep stability for the kids. And then what happened is they're becoming house poor and they don't have the means or the ability to save for retirement. And they're giving up retirement assets to stay in this house. And so the biggest thing I tell people is, one, you need these 2 documents. You need that budget of what does it look like and can you truly afford this house? And I always tell people, I get it. Like, I'm a mom and I stayed in the house. And I find it really fascinating because so my daughter was 6 months old and my son was 2 when my ex-husband was arrested for domestic violence. And so they were little when we got divorced. But when the kids were like 8 and 9 or 9 and 10, I made some comment about the house and the kids were like, we don't want to live here. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, this is like, I was falling into that trap of let me keep things consistent for the kids. Like, I can afford this house. But my kids didn't want to live in the house. Like, they didn't enjoy it. And so you've got to look at what makes the most sense for you from your budget, from your lifestyle, from your situation. And then the other important document is your balance sheet, which is your list of all of your assets and a list of any of your liabilities. And most of us, most Americans walking around don't even know what those two documents are when you're married, let alone, and that's where that's the first step is to get a really good footing of where are you? It's kind of like stepping on that scale of like, okay, what do I weigh? It's okay. What do I own? What do I owe? And what is it going to cost me every month to keep this lifestyle or change my lifestyle? It's all about what do you want? And anything's attainable. It's just getting an idea of where you are today. And then, okay, what's my plan and what's my strategy? What makes the most sense for me?
Yes, yes. And so much of this, I think, from my perspective, it really needs to, in your marriage in general, needs to be a discussion that is happening during the marriage. Because even if your spouse dies, you want to make sure you're financially secure, you and your family, and have access to the retirements and the investment accounts and the IRAs and all of your assets. But even if you're contemplating divorce, just from what you said, Nicole, it sounds like women need to be kind of getting things in place. And I've done, videos about exit strategy. This is part of the exit strategy to really start putting your ducks in a row now, start kind of understanding where the assets are, what the finances look like if you don't already have that. And it sounds like getting things in order now so you can actually get prepared to exit.
Right.
So, what are some tips, like your top tips that you would say, Nicole, for a woman who has gotten divorced, first things first, to hit the ground running that she should be doing or focusing on? It sounds like the house is not necessarily one of them. But what are the 4 tips that you think that she should be focusing on right after divorce?
Yeah, well, I believe there's 4 things that you need financially to survive a divorce. And one of them, you need a place to live. And so one, it's okay, are you going to stay in the house that you are, or do you need to move? And getting a place that makes sense for you, whatever that looks like, because we all need a place to live. Then the next thing is little or no debt. And so if you can come out of the divorce with no debt, that is ideal. And when I'm saying no debt, that doesn't mean if you have a mortgage that that's a bad thing. It's no bad debt. So bad debt is the credit cards, the personal loans. You don't want this super expensive car with a super expensive car loan. You don't want those personal loans and things like that. And so you want to make sure that one, you can handle these payments monthly, or ideally you have no debt, because the third thing is you want liquid money or the ability or the means to save for liquid money. And that's if, you come home today and your air conditioner or your heater doesn't work. Your kid, a girlfriend of mine, her daughter was in gym class and basically like broke and busted her whole arm.
Oh,
it's those things that happen, which are called life.
yes.
So you need to make sure that you have liquid money set aside for those. And so many times, divorce can be so expensive. And so you're getting out of the divorce, you're paying off your attorney, you're maybe moving, or, you're buying plates and you're buying things. And I always give people the advice, like and it just does not give you permission to go on a shopping spree.
Yes.
Spend your money when you're married, not when you're divorced. So if it costs more money to live in 2 households than one. And so when you're together, that is the time to go buy the furniture and the plates and the second set of stuff, not when you're on your own, because you want to make sure that you have that liquid money set aside. And ideally, any wealth advisor in any situation, we're going to tell you at least to have at a minimum 3 to 6 months of your expenses set aside in a money market account that's not underneath your mattress, that's not in your checking account. And that's the biggest thing I see a lot of women make is, and a woman, she came in to my office last week, her divorce ended, and she's like, yeah, I have 300 grand in my checking account. Well, we all work so hard for our money. Your checking account gives you zero interest. And so making sure that you have that liquid money, but then having it in a money market account. And then the last thing is having a balance of these four things. The last thing is having retirement assets or the means or the ability to save for retirement. And so when you're doing your budgets, this is the biggest thing. Like I see so many women that will, like when we're looking for a new job, we look at the qualifications and like let's say they need 10 things and we're like, oh, we don't have all of them. So we don't even apply. Or like we don't ask for a raise. Men, they don't have a problem with that. They're like, I got 2 things on the list. Let me fly. I'll be fine. And so it's all about like, so many days, I feel like more of a therapist, really, wealth advisor. It's all how we think about money. And so many times, I mean, pretty much literally like every time I get a budget, because when people hire me on to help them through the divorce process, I'm like, send me your budget, like send me what you have. Most of the time women are not putting in their money for their own retirement. And you need to be saving in your Roth IRA. You need to be saving in your 401k plan. You need to be asking for these things and asking really for what you need and what you deserve, not necessarily the bare minimum, because we as women, we always tend to put other people first. And when you're going through the divorce process or when you're coming out of it, you need to make sure that you take care of yourself first. And that can you can use that with the house, with retirement, with anything. And I get it. I'm a mom. The kids are now teenagers. We always want to put them first, but you need to put yourself first. What do they tell you when you're on an airplane? Put the air mask on you, then on the people next to you. It's the same thing when it comes to anything in your life, when it comes to your money.
Oh, I love that analogy. And I've used that analogy so many times because it's so true. You have to be able to take care of you in order to take care of others. If you deplete yourself, who are you going to help?
Absolutely.
I love that. And it's funny when I think about myself when it comes to money, and you were talking, Nicole, earlier about when you were younger and got the one math problem wrong. I personally struggled. I always felt like when I was a kid, math was not my strong point. And so growing up, because of that, there was no positive reinforcement to get into the numbers game and know numbers. A lot of women get pushed sometimes, I see, not a lot at all, but pushed into more of the help service industry. So even when it comes to teachers and nurses and, things that are the helpers are a lot of times the majority women versus the more financial kind of jobs where people are making the most money usually are the opposite. Again, not trying to stereotype across the board because we know it depends on a segment, but just in general. So I can imagine there are women out there who just don't feel confident. And I had to start reading books. I just made a decision one day, you are going to learn about money, hands down. Now I think it's easy. Now I enjoy talking about money. But how, as a woman, would you suggest to build up that confidence around just getting comfortable with your finances in general? Is it a book or is it something that women can start doing to get more comfortable with just having conversations about money and using languages around money?
Yep. So one, I would interview some wealth advisors. Most of us, we don't charge for an initial consultation. And so interview some, because one, each of them are going to give you some ideas of your own financial situation, let alone you will find one that you like, that can be your partner, that can be your mentor. And so many times people are like, oh, like I don't have a lot of money. And so like, I don't have enough money to see a wealth advisor. And I always say back, I'm like, how are you going to get a lot of money if you don't have a wealth advisor? And so, like we don't have minimums, like we want to work with nice people. You want to find someone that doesn't have a minimum, doesn't make you feel stupid about money, and that can really be your partner, that person that you connect with that can help guide you make financial decisions so that you're being smart in every aspect. So one, it's getting some help. And then two, it's surrounding yourself with people that truly are financially successful. Unfortunately, we live in so much of a society where, everyone's putting posts up on Instagram and Facebook and social media of like, look at me, look at me, look at me. It's spending money. It's a lot of people live in a lifestyle that they really truly can't afford. And so you want to find those mentors or find those people that are actually truly financially successful. And you want to, because I really truly believe it's who you are, who you surround yourself with. And so changing your circle of influence, if you're going out and you're hanging out with people that are spending money at Starbucks every single day, maybe you need to shift your circle of who you're surrounding yourself with. So and then reading books. One of the things, if you're in a relationship, you were talking about like, how do you talk about money and stuff? So my fifth book is titled Who Pays? Navigating Love and Money. So it's starting with that. What is your relationship with money yourself? Because you need to look at what is your why? Why do you do the things that you do? Why do you work where you work before you get into like the Roth IRA and 401ks and stocks and all of that? But what came from that is one of the couples that we invest money for, she goes, Nicole, do you realize that you saved our marriage?
Wow.
And I was like, wow, no, like I never thought of that. And it's because one of the first homeworks that I had them do is when they were in my office, they were pointing the finger at each other saying, our problem is, he spends so much money. And, he was like, well, the problem is she spends so much money. I said, here's the deal. You're going to go home and you're going to take a glass of water and you're going to put your credit card in that glass of water and you're going to put it in the freezer. And so if you still need to use the credit card, it's available, but you've got to take it out of the freezer and wait for it to thaw before you spend the money. It's the same thing with the Amazon cart. Put whatever you want in your Amazon cart, but you cannot check out until Friday. And what happens is you're going to log in on Friday and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, it's $300 and some or whatever dollar amount. You're like, I don't want to spend that much. And you go through and you're like, I really don't need that. I really don't need that. I really don't need that. So much of how we think about money and spend money and talk about money is so emotional. Yes. And so we came up with this deck of cards. There's 52 of them. And you can ask yourself these questions, am I a spender? Am I a saver? If I, won $1 million, what would I do with it? And all of these different types of things to getting you thinking about money and having, like you said it yourself, like money can be fun. Because that's where I have what's called the Live It list. Because when everything happened for me, I rewrote my bucket list. And when you say bucket list, people think you're dying. I'm like, look, I already died. Like I died inside with my, and so I just started calling it the Live It list. Well, then I learned 1 in 3 Americans is happy. I learned that if you spend more money in experiences, you're going to be happier than if you spend money on things. And so now we have the liveitlist.com. I do coaching with that. We take people on Live It List trips. We do Live It List events. And so it's all about, that's how you make money fun, because planning for retirement is kind of boring versus if you're planning to go on a trip to Costa Rica, that can be more exciting. But what happens is you're still going to be saving for your retirement. But if you want to go to Costa Rica, you're like, okay, I got to save this for retirement. And then I got to put this money away into my travel account or whatever it is that you want. So then saving for retirement becomes more fun because you're like, ooh, if I put this away for retirement, I'm going to save my money on taxes. And then I'll be able to have $100 a month or whatever to put away to my account that I can go to Costa Rica in 2 years or whatever it is. So it's all about making money fun.
I love that. And I love how you transformed also a part of your business into this experience, the Live It list, which we are going to get to in a minute. But this idea that, first of all, we need money to live. And I had to learn that the hard way. This is not just about just daily survival, but it's about having experiences. And when I started to look you up, Nicole, and I saw the Live It list, and I'm glad that you brought that up, I thought, yes, this is what I want divorced women to see. Yes, it's important to be, smart with your money and putting away for retirement, but also you want to live again. You got out of a terrible situation. Now what? Now what is the next step? How are you going to use your money to build a life that you actually love? And Nicole, tell us a little bit more about the Live It list, because I know you take trips. So tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
Hey ladies, I hope you enjoyed that video. Make sure you share, like, and subscribe. Click on all of Nicole's channels, her websites, her information is in the description below, and make sure to continue to follow and share this channel with other women that you know need this information, especially when it comes to their finances. Remember, I'm going to release part 2 of this video in the next couple days, but just absorb what Nicole said. And in part 2, get ready to learn about the Live It list and what that means and how to apply the Live It list to your life.